Good evening and welcome to the Critical Focus channel. I thought I'd do a deck building example for each of the top warbands in my category-based tier list. So I'm going to start from the bottom, just like I did in that video, and make a deck, championship deck for ELATHAIN'S SOULRAID. So I am over at Underworlds DB. So in this first tab here, I'm going to choose my preferred format, which is championship then. And then I'm going to go to the warband selection and scroll down or scroll up rather to digest and find ELATHAIN'S SOULRAID, refresh data, and I'm going to start with picking warband specific cards, faction specific cards that are decent. I'm going to start with the search objectives. And let's just go over them here. So we have 5 cards to choose from. First one is a take a enemy fighter out of action card that requires you to charge and kill them in enemy territory. So 2 kind of conditions here that I don't really like. I think taking out of action cards is a bit too hard to pick for search objectives if you don't really need to. And especially with double caveats, I wouldn't take it. Next one is Smother Memories. It's when an opponent discards a card from their hand without playing it. And you have a couple of cards to aid you in this fashion, but if you want to score this card, you probably need to include all of those cards to make that happen, and then the rest of your deck will suffer from it, so I wouldn't take this card as well. Next one is Speed of the Flood Tide. This one I do like. This is scored after turn activation. You have 3 more friendly fighters in enemy territory, so I will take this card. It's super easy to set up with the fish as well, so you already have 1 in, and most of the time your opponent won't touch to the fish. So we just get 2 fighters in. A Surging Tide scored on immediately after one friendly fighter's second or subsequent move action in the same phase, which is something you can do in the first and the third phase without any cards to aid you, as long as you do it with the Idoneth. They are the ones who have this ability. Flood Tide is called. And the last one is also a take enemy out of action and needs to be your leader's range 1, so I wouldn't take that either, too specific. So it's basically like Savage Example with a further caveat that you can't do it with a range 3 attack, because you have both range 1 and range 3, so it's just worse than taking Savage Example. And I wouldn't take Savage Example anyway, so let's move over to the end phase cards here. Cold Ice Guide Killers. It's 2 glory, but you need to kill 2 in the same phase, and that's too steep for me. Guardians of the Deep is decent. It's at any end phase, and if no enemy fighters are in your territory. I think this can be included. Just for the fact that you are going forward. Might not score it in every end phase, but you will probably score it sometime. So I mean, we'll keep it for now. Maybe we'll change it out later. Next one is Soul Raider. Scores in an end phase of 2 more enemy fighters out of action. You can just take Aggressive Display, and Aggressive Display you can score it in a second way as well. So this is just worse, and I wouldn't take Aggressive Display either. So next one is Tides of Death. Scored in an end phase of 3 more friendly fighters have 1 more charge tokens. It's a bit steep considering you only start with 5 more fighters. So I mean, it's not impossible to pull off, but I think for the size of the warband and the fact that the fish can't charge, so only 4 of your fights can charge, you need to have 3 charge tokens for 1 glory. I mean, for 2 glory I would take it for sure, but no. Unseen Menace is a bit weird because it needs to be one or more enemy fight needs to be within 2 hexes of 2 or more Idoneth, which you only have 3 of. So it kind of forces you into maybe a position that you don't want to be in, so I wouldn't take that either. Next one is Utter Isolation. It's just any end phase as well. 1 or more surviving friendly fighters. There needs to be 1 or more surviving friendly fighters, and no fighter is adjacent to any other fighter. Or a couple of other cards I would take from the Universal card pile, and as well the third end phase card pile that doesn't synergize well with this, so I won't touch that either. Let's click for the third end phase here. This is the card I will include, Dead or Doomed. Scores in the third end phase if each enemy fighter is either out of action or adjacent to one or more friendly fighters. So by the time the third end phase rolls around, with the soulraid, which are super deadly, especially in the second round, there shouldn't be more than one enemy fighter. And so setting up the fish next to that fighter is pretty easy, since it can be done after the power step. So you can't really push with any card after that. So just make sure you go last. So yeah, I think that's pretty easy to score. Okay, so let's move over to the faction ploys. Brain barnacles. You can make an enemy fighter change their attack characteristic to swords instead of hammers. Or yeah, I guess instead of swirls as well, or lightnings. And the fighter has -1 move, and that persists until the end of the round. I think the effect is too weak to include. I mean, if you fight Morgoks changing their attacks to swords, I mean, they will have swords basically, especially when inspired. So won't have much of an effect there. Chill Mist, the next activation fights have -1 move, can't make range 3, that's also too weak of an effect. Cloud of Midnight I will include, because that can save one of your fighters for one activation. That fighter can't be attacked or chosen by gambits or damaged by gambits and can't be pushed. So super strong effect to save a fighter you don't want to have messed with, basically. Crushing Pressure is -2 move, -2 dice for one enemy fighter in next activation, unless they discard one power card. I don't like this type of cards that let your opponent choose the effect, because they will always just take, obviously, the effect that damages them the least, and this won't really do much. I mean, the only really good card that lets your opponent choose bad things happening to the fighters is the toxic gases from the Thunderix Profiteers, especially if you include the lethal hexes on the board. Next one is Fury of the Storm, plays in the third end phase. Each surviving fighter is inspired, unless another player discards 2 power cards. This I do prefer though, because of this, your opponent needs to discard 2 power cards. Discarding 1 won't hurt, discarding 2 will hurt most of the time. And if they don't, you're inspired, and then the ELATHAIN'S SOULRAID is really deadly. So I'll take this for now. Phantasmal Forms, you can save one friendly fighter with this as well. Bump them up to 3 dodge, especially with a lot of gloom going around this, it's pretty strong. Shifting Currents, you can move the shoal token around. Or move an objective. It's not really that great. I mean, it's strong if your opponent moves into your shoal token. So, sure, but yeah, I think you need to include other stuff. Spinefin Toxin, great effect, where you ping your opponent for 1 damage. There aren't really much great ping cards floating around these days. And the only caveat being it needs to be adjacent to your fish. But in addition, that fighter you ping can't hold objectives, can't be on guard, and can't make range 3 attack action for the rest of the round. So that's pretty strong. Last one is also pretty good. Terrorite Venom, you choose one enemy fighter, just do 1 or more friendly fighters. Not only the fish though. And so you get re-rolls versus that fighter for the rest of the round. So that's pretty strong if you really want to hack and slash at one specific fighter. So that's it for the ploys. I think that's about 5 ploys included, right? Yeah. So the upgrades, Armor of Sithai, -1 dice, but it's only for raid adjacent. Pretty decent anyway. Born from Agony is a great fortitude with the added benefit that you can't take damage from lethal hexes. Pretty strong effect. A to C Predator is a weird reaction card for your crab. That when an enemy fighter moves past them, they can roll a hammer to end that fight's move. So that's really weird and weak effect. Don't take that one unless you want to suffer. And you don't want to suffer. Hunter of Souls is +1 damage if the opponent has wounds. So synergizes well with the Spinefin Toxin. And it's for any range as well, so pretty strong. Only caveat is that you can only place it on Idoneth, so you can't put it on the crab, sadly. Lure Light is a weird kind of your opponent gets to choose the effect, and it only works when the leader takes someone out of action, so that's too specific. Martial Excellence is for Furan, the girl, whatever. She gets a guard if she has charged tokens. Most of the time you don't really want to protect your charged fighters, you want to protect the fighters who can still do something. So, and there are a couple of good guard upgrades now, so you can just take them instead. Sanguine Pearl is a damage reduction, but it's only for range. That's not only for range 1, but adjacent enemy fighters. But pretty decent anyway. But it's a bit sad that both the minus dice and minus damage cards is for only adjacent. I mean, there's a lot of teams who have damage reduction for any range. So, Soul Bond is weird, like you're assisted by the leader if he's within 3, but it's only for Tamil. Sure, he can come back, so I mean it's probably more useful to put stuff on him than on Furain, but then again your leader must be within 3, and yeah, I don't think it's that great. Unstoppable Fury is a reroll for charges. Let's take that one. Then the last weird eel upgrade for the leader I won't take. So 5 upgrades, 5 gambits, and we have 4 objectives, so we need to fill up the objective slot here. Let's start with that. So let's start with the searches. Let's put the Universal and the Grand Alliance Order cards here, so we can choose from. Everything to Prove, I don't think it's a great card here, because you don't have a massive damage output, and you don't really have super squishy fighters either. You have 3 wounders, but no 2 wounders, so. And the fact that it's restricted, so I wouldn't take this one. And then there's a lot of like taking out of action cards, but Impending Doom is a very good pick for this team, because you can just set that up with the crab. So Moment of Glory might be tempting to take, because you inspire at the same time with 3 surviving friendly fighters or more. But if you pick this, and if you get this in the first or third round, you're kind of screwed. Sure, you can play Deploy to force your opponent to discard or inspire you, but yeah, I don't think it's great that anyway. Orchestrate to Kill, I think that's pretty decent. This is one of the actually attack action, taking out of action cards I would take, because getting supports here is really easy and you will kill stuff for sure. Then there's just a bunch of crappy cards. I can't be bothered to go into all of them. I mean, Horus in the Dark is probably decent here. Let's take that one. 2 more friendly fighters and cover hexes are not in your territory. And Contest of Equals is always great as well. Branching Fate. We might have too many now. We have 7 searches now. What are we going to get rid of? Let's be bold and get rid of Branching Fate, because that's kind of a... I think it's a boring card as well, but sometimes it's just really frustrating. And the other one is you more have in your own control. And let's see, end phases. Okay, Bold Deeds, I don't think so. We have too many fighters for that. Clean Kills might be a good pick, so let's just take that for now. I think the Persisting Gambit card is great, since you have the Toxin cards and then stuff like that. Promise of Destruction, yeah, for sure. I'm not going to take Scant here, because you have 2 fighters that counter objectives. I think this team is actually pretty good with anti-Scant. Fearless Seekers, pretty good for a 5-man team that can rest and get back into action. Wasteland is also a good pick here, because you're not going to flip a lot in your own territory. You're just going to move forward like a tide. So how much do we need? Actually, we're done there. So we have 5 end phases. I'm not sure about Clean Kills, I'm just going to keep looking a bit. I mean, this might be good. Square end phases are more friendly fights in enemy territory than there are enemy fights in enemy territory. Might be good actually. Think Feeling, more guys on feature tokens, there are enemy fights on feature tokens. Did I take that one? Oh, I took Fearless Seekers. Yeah, let's keep that. We need to be a bit bold in our total glory here. 15 a bit low, so 16 just a sweet spot, I think. And let's go to deploys. We need a bit of a push stuff here. We need to get onto Fearless Seeker. We need to make sure Dead or Doomed gets scored with the enemy adjacent in third end phase. So we need some pushing here. So let's take Hypnotic Buzz for sure. Push an enemy within 2. Let's take Center of Attention, one of the best cards in the game. I think that we should also get Counter Charge. I always like Counter Charge. Also helps you get into enemy territory to score Speed of the Flood Tide. Just pile on. And I think Heated is great. Heated Instinct, you can push 1 or push 2 if you're a quarry. And we don't have too many restricted here, so let's go for Dual Wits. Right, that's probably decent. I mean, I'm not gonna pick my brains for hours and hours on this deck build. I'm just gonna include stuff that is decent and try to synergize stuff as well. For the upgrades, I'm gonna pick Soundless Step, because I do want to have some control over where I end up here, and since I have some range to boot as well. So Stop of Fury, Glory Seek will for sure be included as well. Maybe one more damage card. I think Great Strength needs to be going as well. Not Great Speed, no one takes that. Do we need some more, like, we have 1, 2, we have 2 restricted. Maybe we should actually go for a restricted card here. I think we can actually live to take Scavenged here. So we have 3 restricted there. And 1 more card. So we have some survivability there. We have some survivability there from Agonies with 2 +1 wounds. Maybe a Silent Helm or something here to make us into quarries with a Heated Instinct. We don't have any quarry cards here. Yeah, let's go for Silent Helm. It's always good to pick, I guess. So this is a super quick build. I could probably tweak this for hours and hours. So basically the premise of the deck is to just get in the face of your opponent, stand on a bit of cover hexes in the opponent's territory, getting lots of support for Hooks to kill, Impending Doom, and being pretty aggressive here. Leave your own territory behind as a wasteland. Promise of Destruction will be scored via Spinefin Toxie and Terranite Venom. Maybe that's not enough. That's not enough. Maybe we need 1 more Gambit to actually... Do we have... let's see. I'm just gonna search for end of the round. Oh, I meant actually to take another card here. This one. Let's see. Cautious Maneuver, which lets you react to another Friendly Fight's move action to do a move action. Plays after Friendly Fight's move action, choose another Friendly Fighter that is a hunter or is on guard. The fight makes a move action. This helps me score Searching Tides. Not having to set it up for 2 activations. Let's get rid of Counter Charge. Do I need to get rid of something more? Yeah, let's get rid of Fury of the Storm. I need to have 1 more Persistent Gambit, I think. End of the round. Bound for Begged, Call to Hunt, Carnivor's Old, Turn a Chase. No, not to Turn a Chase here. Yeah, Outrun Death. Also Persistent Gambit. Always great. Some extra move. Never hurts. So yeah. This is looking pretty decent, I think. So I'm just gonna save this here. I'm gonna save it to ELATHAIN'S SOULRAID, tier list deck. And then I'm gonna move on with the 5+ fighter warbands without res summon. Top pick, which is Kanan. But I will end this video here now and see you in the next one.